Neil, thank you for sitting down. We've been talking about this for a little while.
Yeah.
Last time we tried to talk about this was in the middle of a party at a PLRB event. It was very loud, so I'm excited we can actually hear each other. For people who don't know you, can you give a quick, who is Neil Suss?
Yeah, so my name's Neil Suss. I'm the founder and owner of Susco Solutions. We're a software development firm. We were founded actually in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. In a nutshell, we exist to unleash human potential, right? And we do that in three ways. For our clients, through the business software, mainly claims management systems to help them be more effective at doing their claims adjustment and other workflows. For our team, we're really heavily invested in their personal and professional development because we find if you do both, you get better outcomes for them and for us. And then, of course, we've tried to contribute to the community, so organizations that help build people up to be better pursue the American dream. So whether it's charities that teach financial literacy or provide male role models for fatherless children, like we'd like to contribute to them to help them level up. But that's what we do, unleashing human potential with software mainly.
Yeah. Well, so I understand the professional side of it and the business side of what you guys do.
Right.
Very strong presence in the insurance and the claim space in particular, but there is this whole personal background and personal story to it. And so when people hear unleashing human potential, but it's a software solution, understanding your background,
sure,
I totally get where that comes from. So
right.
Can you share about that personal side as well?
Yeah. I've always been interested in learning, right? So it's 2016. The company had been stuck, around 8 people, $1 million in revenue, low profit. Been stuck for a bit. I was 280 pounds. I was smoking like a chimney, drinking too much, not getting any time at home. And I remember I was walking up the stairs of my wife's parents' house in India to have my 20th cigarette of the day at noon. I'm on the stairwell and my knees start hurting, like horribly.
Yeah.
And I just stop. I just freeze. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even 40. My knees are hurting. Am I going to be like my grandmother and not walk at 80? And man, when my dad was 40, he had his stuff together. Like, he was not a hot mess. Like, he had a hard career, but he's always home, and mom got along, decent shape. And I'm nowhere near there. And in the past, my family has always struggled with obesity, everyone till my generation. And I've lost weight 3 or 4 times before. And every time I would lose weight before, I would keep it off for a year to gain it back. And so this time I said, okay, I have to do a mental reboot. So I got hardcore into everything. So I did everything from peer learning groups to reading all of the books, Tony Robbins and, the 4 Agreements, Tim Ferriss, and then getting mentors. And I really just worked on my mind.
Yeah.
I discovered limiting beliefs I was dealing with, the habits, how I was coping with my needs through bad habits.
Yeah.
Worked on that, worked on getting clarity on my mission. And then I was able, after I got my mind straight, I found that any kind of new behavior I wanted, I could do, whether it was the diet or the exercise or, being better at work. Like, once I got my mind straight with those big categories, I got way more effective.
Yeah.
And so the company is already starting to get better, but it just drastically accelerated. You've heard the expression that the leader brings the weather.
Yeah.
Right? And so the whole company could tell the weather changed in 2016
Yeah.
and between 2016 and 2017. And things are slowly getting better. Again, we'd also upgraded it. We'd also really brought some great leaders in 15, so things are already in upswing. But things are getting way better after this personal discovery. By 2018, we're super healthy. We've done, company doubled the revenue to $2 million. I was in good shape. Wife's happy. Company's happy. And we started expanding into insurance, and that's going really well. But then what's interesting is, flash forward, and I'm trying to get to how personal development hits work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so things are going really well. I've incorporated a little bit of personal development stuff at work because I'm so passionate about it, and I just care about people, and I don't want people to suffer like I suffered,
Yeah.
And it was kind of working, but I have a tech company, so my team is like, Neil, this is too fluffy. Can we just please focus on our work?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fine, right? So then COVID happens, we go remote. And by the grace of God, we had an explosion in demand, right? We were really starting to get our presence known insurance, okay? So next thing you know, we hire from 10 people to 20 people, all remote, all over the country, U.S., but all over the country. And I remember, I think it was spring of 21, where 3 people quit within a month. But they all loved the company, but one hated working remote, one didn't like having to do client interface stuff, and one, just didn't like the project he was on. But they all were they loved Susco, but they didn't like one thing.
Yeah.
But no one found out. Like, because if we're in a physical office,
Yeah.
I was in a physical office
You
from,
sensed it.
yeah, I was in a physical office from '06 to whatever, 20. And so, yeah, you could smell it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And so I racked my brain and we invented this thing called the employee check-in program where it's like, it's not a performance review, but it's like every month we're asking like, how's everything going at work? Do you find it fulfilling? What's draining? How are things at home? And, what are you doing to grow? And so we started doing this employee check-in and that started to help. But then we'd find, and so all of a sudden people are now communicating stuff that's wrong. Sometimes something wrong with the company, and we'd help there. But a lot of times, there's stuff where it's like they need personal professional development.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, my management team, after of course people quit, like, all right, Neil, bring in your fluffy stuff. And so we really started saying, okay, well, how do we not just have training about code? How do we have training about stress management? How do we have training about conflict resolution? How do we have training about nonviolent communication? How do we have training on simple, healthy eating habits? Just any kind of training. And that's when we really started to integrate that personal development. One of the things I'm most proud of is this thing called the Individual Development Plan. So, and it's adopted from what I use personally. The idea is, if you imagine life having like 6 or 8 areas, right? So you've got your career, you've got your family, you've got friends, you've got spirituality, physical health, etc. If you imagine these categories, so instead of saying to employees, okay, what are your 1-year goals professionally, and that's all we care about. Yeah. We say, okay, well, first of all, if you're the best version of yourself in 10 years, what does your family look like? Yeah. What do your friends look like? What does your career look like? And so, like for me, for example, this is part of how I lost the weight. My 10-year anti-vision of health was my daughter's getting married, someone else is walking her down the aisle because I died because of stress and obesity and whatever. And on top of that, both of them are morbidly obese, because I set a bad example. Yeah. So there's my anti-vision. And then a 10-year vision for this personal thing, where it's like, I'm obviously the one walking my daughter down the aisle. Everyone's happy. And so imagine creating this future memory for each category of your life, and then saying, okay, hey, what's 1-year goal that puts you on that mission? And so that we started doing that for people. Not everyone participates, but the ones who do get a lot of value out of it. And there's actually some interesting data here. It shows that if you help your teammates plan goals for their life, there's one group of people, and let's say another group of people just did plans for work. Yeah. The group that you did plans for life, actually they're happier and they do better with their work goals. Yeah. Right. So it's just a win for everybody.
Yeah. This notion that like none of what you just said really is like super business focused, right? It's very much on the person. But this notion that, well, like this is an employee and then separately they have a life. It's like we don't do that. I always say, like, when people think like, I walk in the door after work and then I'm good. Yeah. Like switch off my issues from the day, or I walk into work and whatever's going on at home is behind me because now I'm in a different context. Like we're not like that.
It's science fiction. Yeah. It's futile. Yeah. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. You can't succeed in one without recognizing there's a holistic person.
Right.
Going between the two.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I think I'm not sure if I'm using the term properly, but I like to consider like being psychologically integrated, like understanding that your work self and your home self are married at the hip. So, for example, before I did all this self work, I used to lament the fact, like, okay, I'd go to work, someone would be mean, right, and I'd have to talk them down or whatever, and I'd go home and my kid would be rude or whatever, and it's like, oh man, I have to deal with this crap at work and then at home. And then my mental model changed, where it's like, well, no, actually, the thing you dealt with at work just trained you for the thing in the evening, and then the thing in the evening just trained you for the thing at work. Like it's not about work-life balance. It's about how do you look at it like in a way that almost creates mental abundance, because you're sharpening the sword everywhere. You're sharpening one sword. That's the thing. If you integrate it and say that you have one self and you got to bring that self everywhere you go, you're always sharpening a sword. It's great.
You used a word early on about habits.
Yeah.
And, I think about individuals, and my backstory, not the same as yours, but there's a lot of similarity in that.
Yeah.
When we think about the insurance industry and we think about habits, like the industry is stuck in a lot of ways, and we've been doing things in certain ways that get by and we're fine.
Yeah.
It's sort of like this low-grade fever.
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation last night with someone about, like, he's a tech solution selling into the insurance industry. And it's like, we see this waste and we see this frustration in staff, but then the carriers are like, oh, well, it's not my number one problem.
Yeah.
And it's so then it's good enough to live with that. And like, we individually and as an industry get stuck in these
Yeah.
old ways.
Right.
I'm curious about this approach that you're taking kind of more holistically. Do you think it's a path to break through these habits?
Very much so. They're actually the same. So basically, okay, let's say for example, you have a routine of when you get. I'm trying to think of a good personal one. Like, okay, well, you have a routine of whenever you get stressed out, you overeat, right?
Yeah.
And you notice that reduces your stress, and you're able to function better and get your work done, right? And because it's meeting your need for like safety and certainty, kind of taking your fear away, right?
Yeah.
And just in the same way, maybe, I'm trying to think of a work equivalent. You have a habit of, maybe you have a habit of, I'm trying to think of a good example. What's a good bad work habit for insurance?
I mean, I think we just sort of give in on, someone brings something to us that is the wrong answer, is not getting it, like low-level fraud.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's only a couple grand, or it's better just get this resolved and get it off my plate, even though I have all the facts in front of me
Yeah.
to push back on this. And so, a $20,000 claim ends up being 30 that should have only been 20.
Got it.
Because it's not worth it. It's like, well,
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the way I look at the habits in that situation is, well, how do you make the pain of the habit more obvious to the person doing the behavior, worse than the pain of change? Because that's the question, right? Is like, then that's the awareness. And so, for example, with the overeating one, it's like, you can't just say stop overeating and do something else. You have to give somebody a viable alternative, or maybe a personal management style. Like, okay, if I always am, micromanaging somebody's work, instead of like, say, let's, for example, like making a QA checklist, right? So you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to lose. So like let's say you have a habit of always checking your subordinates' work, and it's crushing your time, your productivity, right? Well, until that person is convinced that, hey, look, I know it's going to be painful to switch over to a QA checklist because you have to spend so much upfront time, but over time you'll win. So I think that's the thing with habits. You have to you have to make it very clear that the new habit will eventually create benefit, long run benefit.
Yeah.
And that can be hard.
Yeah. That change, the sense of cost of change.
Yeah.
I think if someone's got a route that they take every day, and
Yeah.
give them a
Yeah.
short, even if they time it and it's 5 minutes faster, invariably they're going to be like, well, I don't know, it felt like it was long. I'm not
Right.
sure that was a good route.
Yeah.
It's like, that took you 20 minutes. Your normal route takes you 30.
Right.
That's faster. And because it's different, it feels
Right.
uncomfortable, even if it's blatantly
Yep.
immediately better.
Because you perceive more risk.
Yeah.
Right? So we perceive a lot of risk of the unknown, and we're also very bad. We're really bad. We over discount the value of future benefit.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a habit you can change, but that creates an incremental benefit now forever, but it sucks to make the change now, we have a very difficult time creating the same emotional resonance of the pain of moving to the benefit of the change versus the habit.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to be really aware of.
Yeah. I do think your point about recognizing the person in all this, and that it's like you can't tell people, oh, just don't overeat. Like, oh, okay, that was the whole time here. I thought I was,
Right.
Overeating was the path to losing
Right.
weight. You can't just tell them, just forget about that stuff going on. Your parents sick in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, you got to forget about that for a minute and just do
Right.
your work. I always say if someone says just, watch out for what they're about to say, because it's a gross oversimplification of the actual
That's a very good flex.
person
Right.
involved. And I mean, I'm sure there are people who roll their eyes when you talk about some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
For those who engage in it, like, the upside is massive.
Yeah. I mean, you got to. Like, I mean, it's not like, it'd be one thing. All the work we do requires human intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're sitting here mindlessly on a factory line, like, just trying to like do physical things.
Yeah.
We are doing things that require us to think, and to and your ability to think is dramatically affected by your state of mind.
Yeah.
And like, so we're humans. So like, yeah, it's just, you can't separate. You can't separate your state of mind, how you're feeling about your life overall, from your work performance. It's just you can do it for small sprints, but it's not sustainable. You know.
Yeah, grin and bear it doesn't work.
Right.
long.
And you're going to lash out, and you're not going to be happy. And ultimately, we're all in this together. We all have emotions. We all have issues we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like, why try to pretend they're not there?
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, if anything, when the age of AI, what makes us human is our emotions and our thoughts and stuff like that. We're not just calculating things.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's a good bit of inspiration for people that, like, yes, on the professional side and, it's a business and everything, but to think that that exists in a vacuum,
Yeah.
and it's not made up of people that are
Right.
complete pictures of a life, I think we end up missing opportunity if we're going to frame it that way.
We do, and and again, it's not me being charitable. Like I make more money because of this.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel good about it, but like ultimately, because when you treat yourself and your workforce as full humans, and take things into account. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still have accountability and things like that, but like when you have the whole human in mind, you get better retention, better performance, better loyalty, better communication. The clients are served better. You make more money. Period. Now maybe it's maybe a little investment here and there, but the net year over year is just crazy. You know. I mean, for example, we're proud to be Inc. fastest growing forever, and for the past 3 years, best places to work Inc. And so that's something that it doesn't have to be something you're doing like. You're not being a charitable capitalist. You're doing it because it really is a win for all.
Yeah, I mean, I think good goes round.
Yeah.
You prioritize the right ultimate outcomes.
Right.
And not the short-term gain.
Right.
Like there are no doubt at every one of these turns, there's a better, cheaper, faster, immediate option for you to take.
Yeah.
That will cost you significantly more in the long
Right.
run. A lot of people take to that.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, that's another habit. So,
Yeah.
Quarterly results or
Right. And also, I think to be clear too, like a lot of these personal concepts go straight into performance reviews. Like for example, for professional work. So, for example, if you have a project manager that routinely gets into conflict with a salesperson over proposals, right? Understanding that the project manager has a need for certainty that is not being met when the salesperson gives them less data, and understanding that the salesperson has a need for achievement to win that deal, and what emotions are kind of driving their conflict allows you to address that professional conflict.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not just that you're doing personal stuff to make their personal life better, so they're nicer at work or whatever. Like all these personal concepts apply to every single communication two humans have.
Yeah.
So it directly affects professional performance.
People are people.
Yeah.
There aren't
Yeah.
two types of them.
Right.
Really, really valuable, and it's great to take the example of what you've been able to do, and not just you personally, but you as the organization, as the company, and the culture of the place, and what's come as a result of that investment.
It's awesome, and I think it's rewarding, and also I think it's actually more important now than I think it was before AI a couple of years ago.
Why?
So I think that if you're a leader in general, and definitely if you're a tech firm, but if you're a leader in general, AI is coming, right? So we fundamentally, I think you have two choices. The easy, obvious choice is say, okay, great, AI is coming. Let me maximize the use of it to basically take any given business process and make it take less effort, so that I can still sell to clients and I'll be able to keep up with the market. And what will happen is you'll maintain your revenue, or revenue may get shrunk, but you'll maintain your business, and you'll end up probably making the same amount of profit with less, right? And so that's one choice, is to okay, let's use this for automation so that we don't lose to our competition who are more efficient. But the result is going to be you're not going to have this. So that's one choice. The other choice is to say, okay, well, hold on, is there a way to use AI to not only become more efficient, to drive up new revenues, such that I don't have, and I think, two things. Just me personally, I don't want to lay off, right? So I've been really, I'm not going to, I've been thinking about this a lot. So I want to choose option B. Just to give you a quick background, from rural South Carolina, I was bullied a lot as a kid, beat up. I've been, publicly rejected by women in a horrible way. I've had some embarrassing shit happen to me, okay? Horrible stuff. But I got to tell you, no experience in my life has been worse than the feeling last year when I had to call 5 people individually and say, through no fault of your own, you no longer. I'm never doing that shit again. Part of my, I'm committed to not doing it again. So anyway, I've been racking my brain thinking about, okay, how do we fight the future and get super creative to where we're using AI to drive up revenue enough so there's no layoff and everyone wins, right? And really that requires, it's the harder path and requires a lot of creativity. And I've noticed, I thought back to the transformation I had in 2017, and I'm like, I always have the best ideas work-wise when I'm doing something ridiculously amazing personally. Okay? And so it just so happened that in June. In June, I was honored to like speak at my old high school as a commencement speaker after 30 years, and you know, it was a really wonderful experience. 500 really smart kids. It was really funny because I was actually chosen when I was there 30 years ago as most annoying. So I kind of thought it was ironic I got to speak at the convention. But anyway, so after that, you know, this voice in my head went off and said like, hey, what, you know, you just gave this talk to all these kids. You're not perfect. Like, what would you have to change in your life to where your kids could see you, you know, and they could see you 24/7 on camera and you not be ashamed, you know? Like, and so it was then I was like, well, okay, I guess I really do like my behavior in general, but it's after I have 4 to 5 drinks, there is some non-zero chance I'll do something this. And so, all right, let me try this out. So I ended up like, you know, just basically going low, no alcohol for the summer and kind of sticking under 7 drinks a week. And anyway, so that was kind of so I started to really I never cheated. So I started to go from like generally rather fit to like super, right? I'm kind of connected to prior thought. Again, when I was doing the personal transformation originally, the work benefit that happened as far as the personal at the same time.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm kind of going a little bit around, but basically I noticed as like I was getting these results I had never gotten before, you know, like we're talking 14% body fat, like looking like in the mirror without clothes on, looking like the hero in the mirror, the movie, like it sounds silly, but all of a sudden, like I had more confidence about this impossible task I'm on.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm trying to get at very inefficiently is like this journey I'm on to kind of really achieve this peak physical state is getting my juices flowing and the ideas I'm having for how to solve this problem and some capital things we're looking at and ideas. And I'm just so dialed in because of the personal improvement I'm doing on solving the business problem.
Yeah.
It's giving me the confidence to say, okay, maybe this is impossible, but I'm already doing the impossible in this arena in life.
Yeah.
You know, and then and so that aspect. So if you're, you know, depending on your condition in life, if there's a certain thing that personally you're trying to achieve, maybe it's not that. Like, for example, I just learned also how to like sing different songs at karaoke. I didn't know that style before. I know it sounds silly, but I did something uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And each time I'm doing something uncomfortable to get better, it's making my business ideas get better.
Sure.
And so I encourage any leader who's like scared of the AI and who wants to scale their company and who wants to like get the best ideas possible, if you can pick another thing that you're passionate about getting better in, and you know you can get better if you put effort in, like the effort you put into that is actually going to pay dividends on the business issue.
Yeah.
I promise. I know it sounds weird. Yeah.
I think that's a really because that like crisp advice on that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Sorry it took so long to get there though.
It's good. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.